Walla. That's what they're talking. I laugh. Breaking news. Oga Mr. Tinubu, president, don't announce say food shortage. They say food insecurity, food shortage. All my life, where I take day, I never hear say food dey scarce for Nigeria. The one wey we come dey so food don dey scarce for Nigeria, and the most difficult things that Nigeria is encountering these days is that everybody for Nigeria, they want buga, nobody want use hand work. Make una no go work, make una dey there. Una no say oyibo dey use hand till they produce wetin we dey eat. Na still people dey produce am for Europe. Oh, a word is enough for the wise.
Ordinary Nigerians. Among the key interventions are the immediate release of fertilizers and grains to farmers and households to mitigate the effects of subsidy removal, while the central bank will continue to play a pivotal role in funding the agricultural value chain.
Accordingly, and in line with this administration's position on ensuring that the most vulnerable are supported, the President has declared with immediate effect the following actions. 1, a state of emergency on food security. 2, that all matters pertaining to food and water availability and affordability as essential livelihood items be included within the purview of the National Security Council. As with most emergencies, there are immediate, medium, and long-term interventions and solutions. In the immediate term, this government intends to deploy some savings from the fuel subsidy removal into the agricultural sector, focusing on revamping the agri sector.
The message is that middlemen who have kept all these grains, because we'll be releasing everything we have in stock. So the message is that middlemen and those who are storing these things to create arbitrage and get profits, this is the best time to release it quickly, because once we release those paddy and the maize that the central bank has, your prices will be depressed.
In addition, the government plans to establish a national commodity board that will monitor and regulate food prices, ensuring fair pricing for consumers.
Through this board, government will moderate spikes and dips in food prices. As for storage, existing warehouses and tanks will be revamped to cut waste and ensure efficient preservation of food items. This government says it's going to do away with the old ways of livestock business. So livestock business is holistic, whether herders, grazers, whatever.
Efforts to facilitate trade and increase revenue from food and agricultural exports are also highlighted. The government aims to streamline customs processes and reduce transportation costs, benefiting both producers and consumers. With these interventions, the government hopes to not only address the immediate crisis, but also create employment opportunities in the agricultural sector. However, Nigerians eagerly await to see the implementation of these initiatives, hopeful they will bring more affordable food items for them. From the presidential villa, Adesua Omoruan, Arise News.
Meanwhile, the National Assembly has approved the $800 million World Bank loan request for the federal government to deal with the effects of the scrapping of fuel subsidy. It has now emerged that President Bola Tinubu plans to pay 8,000 naira a month to 12 million poor and low-income households for 6 months. Arise correspondent Omo Wazaye reports that Parliament also permitted the President to convert another 500 billion naira from a supplementary budget initially approved for 2022 for the same purpose.
2 months after the 9th National Assembly refused to approve the $800 million World Bank loan for former President Muhammadu Buhari, President Bola Tinubu resubmitted the same request to the 10th Senate to cushion the impact of his fuel subsidy removal. Buhari had sent the loan request to the National Assembly with barely 19 days to the end of his administration, but the lawmakers failed to act on it before the end of their legislative tenure in June. According to Tinubu, The disbursement of the loan is to provide safety net for vulnerable Nigerians. And to ensure the transparency of the process, Tinubu, in a letter read by the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, on the floor, said digital transfers were made directly to beneficiaries' accounts and mobile wallets.
Approval of the request of Mr. President has been granted by the Senate and will now be communicated to him.
The program, which is expected to stimulate economic activities in the informal sector, improve nutrition, health and education, targets at least 12 million poor Nigerians as beneficiaries. Tinubu, on his inauguration day, announced the removal of fuel subsidy, a burden, he said, government can no longer carry. In the same vein, the president requested the National Assembly to allow him convert another 500 billion naira from the 819 supplementary budget for 2022 to alleviate the effects of subsidy removal policy. The president could not withdraw the money from the service-wide vote and could also not forward a fresh supplementary budget of his own, as he was yet to constitute his cabinet.
The palliative component of that particular bill was 500 billion. That is to cushion the impact of the oil subsidy. Because, Mr. President, from what we understood, believed that we can delay gratification for a greater gain tomorrow.
And it is to this extent the President looked into this document and agreed that the supplementary budget of 819 be amended to take care of some of these palliatives. And as such, he went into the document and reordered. And that was where this said 500 billion is coming from.
The sum of 185 billion is to be channeled to the Ministry of Works and Housing to alleviate the impact of severe flooding experienced in the country in 2022. The amendment also sought to allocate 19 billion naira to the Federal Ministry of Agriculture to ameliorate massive destruction of farmlands across the country during the severe flooding experienced last year. The breakdown further reveals that 35 billion will go to the National Judicial Council, 10 billion to the Federal Capital Territory Administration for critical projects, while the remaining 70 billion will be given to the National Assembly to support the working conditions of new members. After hours of deliberations, the National Assembly approved all the requests of the President. With these approvals, hopes are high the Nigerians will, in a matter of time, begin to feel the impact. Omo Bazwai, Arise News.
Well, a number of things to chat about this morning, Rufai.
Yeah. So a couple of things. Number one, declaration of state of emergency on food, long overdue. In fact, we ought to have done this a couple of years ago. We have a big food crisis in our country. A part of it is caused by the high amount of post-harvest losses. Another part is caused by the fact that we don't just plant enough because of insecurity. The other day, you saw a story of a lawmaker saying jihadis from Niger are collecting taxes from our farmers, so we can't plant. How do we solve the problem of not storing what we have planted, post-harvest losses? We need to build more silos around the areas, organize farmers into communities, give them fertilizers, but have more silos to be able to store their food. You know why? What happens is most of the time, most of their foods are lost to post-harvest losses. So the middlemen come in and buy their food and keep their food and sell it at a higher price. So if you have more of this silos, you can eliminate more of the middleman effect and be able to get the farmers proper value for their food and also be able to track the price of food. Also, we need to plant enough. We have over 83 million hectares of arable land in this country to plant. We're not optimally utilizing that. We should be the food basket of Africa, but we've not done that. In the 60s, and that's why when I saw the tomato debacle recently, I shorted. In the 60s, Nigeria used to produce about 1/3 of the tomatoes in the West African sub-region. But now we don't have that again. We're not planting enough. We need to be able to shore up production. And like I said before, give them the farmer subventions, loans, and palliative and everything, and fix the problem of insecurity on the farms. and also be able to double effort as regards ensuring that transportation of the food is made necessary. So even the colonialists were very wise enough to be able to build rail tracks across areas that had output. What can we do now? Let us use our rail lines. They should be able to move food from the north to the south, make cost of transportation easier. If possible, all the other narrow gauge lines, we could resuscitate them. Use less speed trains to be able to get food across board. The palliative and subvention he's giving, we still need a lot more. 8,000 for 12 million families. What makes up those families in the first place? What makes up those households? For 6 months, how reaching will this effect go? Not too much. Also, we need to be able to tie the things we give around outcomes. I would have wanted us to be able to put more as regards reducing the price of food in the market rather than giving these handouts that you will give for a while and it will go. So what are the outcomes we can tie them around then? I keep referring to Ghana. I keep referring to Brazil, Bolsa Familia, tying them around education outcomes, some people argue, but also look at the terrain in Nigeria. As regards farmers not getting enough irrigation, like I was saying before, build a dam per district. Try as much as possible to bolster agricultural prospects around there. And I saw there that you want to give 70 billion to lawmakers to aid new. No, let's reduce that money. You see, these people have rich enough. They've done well for themselves. Let's cut that money and give it more to the people. Because these people have big convoys and all of that. No, you can't be telling us to tighten our belt and we're hearing 70 billion being given to lawmakers. No, I'm not anti-lawmakers, but it's a desperate time. And in fact, let's even stretch the argument by saying, why can't we cut it to one house rather than having, two houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives? No, because you're giving 70 billion to lawmakers to aid in the work of the newcomers. I'm not saying it's not